Alright, today, Mondo review, I am going to discuss Gone Girl. I'm late to the party. It's already a movie. It's huge, huge book, super popular. Um, I'm just going to have to get into it. So, my disclaimer is I have thoughts about this, but don't just stop listening to this like halfway through if you were a huge fan of Gone Girl and you don't agree with what I'm saying, because I end up circling back, and I think it won't be as bad as you think. So watch the whole thing. And if you're not a fan of Gone Girl, watch the whole thing because I'm not a fan of this novel, and just let's see if we're on the same page. Okay, so I'm not going to go over the plot at all because you should know it. The movie trailer, it's pretty simple. Okay, I'm going to go over the plot. Wife disappears, husband's sitting there, and essentially what's going on. You get it from his perspective, and then her diary entries, and then later that changes. Anyway, so let me start this. If you're not going to watch this at all, not a fan. Not a fan. Just based on the book, I think the plot's okay. It's an alright idea. There are so many things that I found really unbelievable about the plot. Okay, one, I hated both the characters. Amy's terrible. Either Amy. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. Journal Amy or post-journal Amy. Terrible. Both terrible people. Hated, annoying. Nick, idiot. Hated him. His dad I hate. The only person I liked was the lawyer and the detective. They're barely in it. Anyway, so he makes a lot of really stupid decisions, which were extremely frustrating, and a lot of bad choices. Also, I find it highly, I feel like there were a lot of things just taken for granted in the mystery solving part of this, or how tight Amy's plan was, or anything. There are a lot of holes that are just sort of glossed over, and the explanations that are given aren't that great. So I really didn't enjoy that. It was just frustrating to see how stupid everybody was except Amy. There were a lot of instances of interesting gender dynamics. I think you could do a whole study of gender dynamics in this novel. Just different ideas. I haven't fully thought it out, so don't hold me to any strong position on any of these things. I'm just thinking about them now, but you could say the way women are presented, the way men are presented, the switching of those roles. You could even say there is a lot of things that are said within the novel that are disparaging to either gender, both genders, all at the same time. And I think if you were to switch the positions of the husband and the wife, there'd be a lot of things that were unfair that are piled on. I don't know, it's really interesting. I think that this novel essentially is just cheap entertainment. I don't think it's that well written. I don't think there's any deep meaning to it. I don't even think it's that entertaining myself. And I don't disparage anybody who does think it's entertaining. The plot, I'm sure it's gripping. It isn't interesting. You do want to know what happens. You do have a lot of cliffhangers in the way that you switch back and forth in the chapters. So I don't disparage anybody who found it thrilling at all, or who enjoyed it. This is just my thing, my own hang-ups about it. So this review is going to be a little weird, because this book gave me such a strong visceral reaction to how much I disliked it, that I felt the need to kind of justify why I disliked it using people who are much smarter than me and their words. So this is all highly subjective about what your views on what art is and what it should do and whatnot, and there's tons of stuff that can dispute everything I'm about to say, but just hear me out. So what I want to start with, the role that a piece of literature plays. What is it supposed to do? So one of the very earliest philosophers that we often discuss is Aristotle, and he essentially gave art the reason art could be allowed to survive in his world was because it served one purpose, that of catharsis. which essentially, according to him, is a purgation of negative emotions that would otherwise cloud humanity's judgment and actions. I'm going to quote him here. Music, which we will read as poetry because he addresses both with the same idea. This quote just says music. Music should be studied for the sake of many benefits, one of which is purgation. The word purgation, we must use it present without any explanation, but when hereafter we speak of poetry, we will treat the subject with more precision. For feelings such as pity and fear, or again, enthusiasm, exist very strongly in some souls, and have more or less influence over all. Some persons fall into a religious frenzy, whom we see, when they have used the sacred melodies, restored as though they had found healing and purgation. Those who are influenced by pity or fear, and every emotional nature, must have a like experience, and others in so far as each is susceptible to such emotions, and all are in a manner purged and their souls lightened and delighted. So the reason that we can allow art to exist is because it allows for this cleansing and this purging of negative emotions. By the way, the plot and the roles are played out and such. I found no such purge from reading Gone Girl. In fact, I was left with a bunch of negative emotion at the end, which I'll come back to later. But I want to move on to the next role of art and writing and poetry. We're going to use the word poetry to stand in for writing, literature. I'm not literally just talking about poetry. And we can look at the Samuel Johnson, a famous Enlightenment writer and thinker, who states, "The purpose of these writings is surely not only to show mankind, but to provide that they may be seen hereafter with less hazard, to teach the means of avoiding the snares which are laid by treachery for innocence, without infusing any wish for that superiority with which the betrayer flatters his vanity, to give the power of counteracting fraud, without the temptation to practice it, to initiate youth by mock encounters in the art of necessary defense, to increase prudence without impairing virtue." He also goes on to say, Johnson also goes on to say that the writer must write as the interpreter of nature and the legislature of mankind, and consider himself as presiding over the thoughts and manners of successive generations, as a being superior to our time and place. So essentially, the author has a very important position in society. Let me just adjust that. And I don't feel like the author of Gone Girl is honoring that place with her writing. So I had a pretty strong negative reaction to Gone Girl. As saying is it just a piece of entertainment literature, but not worthy of the high praise that I've heard heaped on it. And it made me really angry, just the story in itself, how no one gets punished and everything. But that gave me a thought. There's a passage, actually, in the book where the character Nick is talking about his wife, and he says, "The second thing you need to know about Amy is she is righteous. She is one of those people who is never wrong, and she loves to teach lessons, dole out punishment." So, thinking about that, as I was so angrily describing how little I liked this book, or how frustrating the plot was, and how irresponsible I think the plot was, I thought, is that intentional? Is she intentionally writing a plot with no real resolution so that I feel the need to dole out punishment? Does that make me, Amy, the person who I find so despicable, and who many, I believe, find despicable? So if she did that on purpose, good for her. Very clever. However, I don't think that is the intention. I think that's my own crazy brain coming up with some stuff and justifying it to myself. So, I will say Gone Girl is mediocre at best, and I was not a big fan. So, as always, happy reading, enjoy life, see you next time.